Tell me honestly, was I wrong to feel a cold, burning resentment as I stood there holding that heavy, leather-bound, worthless-looking trunk? Because while my two older sisters were exchanging triumphant, greedy glances, securing their immediate $16 million windfalls from my mother's estate, I was left with a single, massive, locked container that smelled faintly of dust and mothballs. In that moment, watching the sheer disparity unfold, I believed my mother, Eleanor, had delivered her final, cruel judgment. I was the least deserving, the overlooked failure, the son she couldn't trust with real money. But this isn't a story about a failed inheritance. It's a deep, twisted tale about my mother's hidden genius, a 60-year-old family secret, and the moment I realized that what she left me wasn't just cash, it was a colossal piece of history that forced me to choose between quiet, comfortable wealth and a legacy that could redefine my life and spectacularly ruin my entitled sisters. To grasp the magnitude of the betrayal, you have to understand the family dynamic and the legend of the $16 million. My mother, Eleanor, wasn't born rich, but she had a relentless, quiet ambition. She married a brilliant but hapless inventor, my father, and together they built a successful, though unglamorous, regional manufacturing business. After my father passed, Mom sold the business and became an extremely savvy investor, turning the proceeds into an impressive estate. My sisters, Charlotte and Vivian, spent their entire adult lives as extensions of that wealth. Charlotte married a lawyer and was obsessed with social climbing, viewing every family gathering as a chance to flaunt her designer clothes and subtle judgment. Vivian was the free spirit, perpetually starting failed businesses that Mom constantly bailed out, making her feel eternally entitled to more. I, Daniel, was the middle child, the quiet one. I chose a simple life as a history teacher, dedicating my time to local archives and historical preservation. To my sisters, my job was a polite way of saying unsuccessful. They viewed my passion for history and old artifacts with condescending pity. Mom, while she never criticized my career directly, constantly pressured me to seek more lucrative paths. She loved me, I knew that, but her love was often expressed through subtle, disappointing comparisons to my sister's financial ambition. Mom passed away after a long illness. The grief was real, but the atmosphere at the lawyer's office for the will reading was heavy with financial anticipation. Mr. Chen, the family solicitor, sat before us, his expression grave. He began with the assets, several properties, investment accounts, and the final valuation. A total estate worth approximately $35 million. Charlotte and Vivian were practically vibrating. Then came the distribution. Mr. Chen cleared his throat. To my eldest daughter, Charlotte, I bequeathed the sum of $8 million in liquid assets, plus the family vacation home in Aspen. Charlotte offered a thin, victorious smile. To my daughter, Vivian, I bequeathed the sum of $8 million in liquid assets, plus the investment apartment in the city. Vivian let out a soft sigh of satisfied relief, her bailout complete. That was $16 million gone, along with the most desirable real estate. Then Mr. Chen looked at me. My heart was pounding, expecting the remainder, the other half. And finally, Mr. Chen continued, to my son, Daniel, I leave the following items, specified in a highly confidential codicil. A fixed-term annuity of $500,000, and all the contents of the large, cedar-lined leather steamer trunk currently stored in the attic of the main residence. The silence was deafening. $500,000. That's a large sum, but in the context of a $35 million estate, it was a paltry consolation prize. It was what you leave the gardener, not the son. And a locked trunk, I felt the shame burn in my cheeks. Charlotte let out a tiny, choked gasp that sounded suspiciously like a suppressed laugh. Vivian didn't even bother to hide her smirk. Her eyes said, *C. We knew you were the failure. I drove straight to the main house that afternoon, the will and the key to the trunk burning a hole in my pocket. The trunk was exactly as described, a massive, antique steamer trunk, bound in scarred brown leather and reinforced with brass bands, sitting alone in the dusty attic. It was heavy, far heavier than it looked, suggesting it wasn't just filled with old clothes. I slid the single brass key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying, ancient click. I lifted the lid. The contents weren't old photographs or clothes. They were paper, thousands of documents, meticulously organized and bound with brittle, yellowed ribbons. My historian's heart immediately sped up. The first item I pulled out was a thick, handwritten journal dated 1961. It belonged to my father, the hapless inventor. He wasn't inventing appliances, he was documenting a discovery. My mother, who had been a gifted chemist before they married, was his partner. The journal detailed their extensive, secret research in the early 1960s into a lightweight, durable, self-healing polymer, a material that was decades ahead of its time. The original intent was to use it for their manufacturing business, but the material was too expensive and volatile to mass produce back then. What I held wasn't just a journal. It was the entire scientific history of a potentially game-changing material. My hands trembling, I dug deeper. Beneath the journal was a sealed manila envelope. Inside, I found three things: a notarized patent application dated 1964, signed by both my parents, the original chemical formula written on brittle onion paper, and a letter from Mom. The letter was dated 2 weeks before her death. It read, *My dearest Daniel, the $500,000 is your safety net. The trunk is your true inheritance. Your sisters live in the present, consumed by what they can acquire immediately. You, my historian, live with the past, understanding that true value often lies dormant, waiting for the right moment and the right mind to unlock it. This material, which your father and I called Project Phoenix, is worth nothing as an old patent, but everything as a secret. The patent expired decades ago, but the formula itself was never made public, protected by our old corporate veil. I trust you, the one who understands lasting value, to know what to do with this. Don't let your sister's entitlement blind you to your own potential. Love, Mom. I sat on the dusty attic floor for hours, processing the staggering reality. My mother hadn't punished me. She had given me a weapon. A secret formula that, with modern manufacturing, could revolutionize entire industries, from infrastructure to aerospace. It wasn't $16 million. It was the potential for $1 billion proprietary empire. The material was now feasible, given today's advanced polymer chemistry. The patent was dead, meaning the public wouldn't have known about the formula itself. And since my parents had kept the formula secret even from their own corporate dissolution, I was the sole custodian of a unique chemical breakthrough. So that's the situation I was in. I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, how I turned that dust-covered formula into a thriving company, and the glorious, satisfying consequences that followed for my entitled sisters, I want you to pause right now and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have sold the formula quietly to a major corporation for a quick 9-figure payout? Or would you have taken Mom's challenge and built the Phoenix Company yourself, using it as the ultimate revenge against your sister's entitlement? What would you have done? I chose the legacy. I chose the challenge. I chose Phoenix. I leveraged the $500,000 annuity to hire two of the brightest material science graduates from my university, rented a small lab space, and began the delicate, painstaking process of validating and modernizing the 60-year-old formula. The material was everything the journal claimed: astonishingly light, flexible, and virtually indestructible. It was a game changer. We secured a few small investment rounds from venture capitalists who saw the potential, and within 3 years, Phoenix Materials was officially born, focusing initially on specialized infrastructure applications. My sisters, meanwhile, were enjoying their $16 million. Charlotte blew through a significant portion on lavish renovations and a failed attempt to buy her way onto an exclusive country club board. Vivian, predictably, lost most of her money launching a ridiculous chain of gourmet pet bakeries that flopped spectacularly. They still saw me as poor Daniel, the history teacher, occasionally offering me condescending advice or asking if I needed a loan. I simply smiled and said I was busy with my preservation project. The revenge came not through cruelty, but through sheer, undeniable success, amplified by a massive construction contract that put Phoenix Materials on the map. We secured a national contract to supply our self-healing polymer for bridge reinforcement projects across the state. The announcement was a huge public event, covered by every major news outlet. I was standing on stage, signing the $1 billion contract, when the news scroll at the bottom of the screen highlighted the history: Phoenix Materials, founded by Daniel Sterling, based on a proprietary, decade-old formula developed by his parents. Charlotte and Vivian were watching. The phone calls started immediately, hysterical and accusatory. Charlotte was the first. "Daniel, what is this? A secret company? Why didn't you tell us about this formula? Mom's assets were supposed to be shared equally. You must have stolen it." I calmly explained that the formula was in a locked trunk, bequeathed only to me. "But it was Dad's work. It belongs to the family," she shrieked. "No, Charlotte," I replied, my voice steady. "It belongs to the sole person Mom trusted to understand its value. The formula was legally mine, and the company is legally mine. You got your $8 million and the Aspen house. I got the trunk. That was Mom's will." Vivian's call was shorter, mostly just a desperate plea for a stake in the company, which I politely and firmly denied. The best part: Charlotte and Vivian had used almost all their initial inheritance to maintain their lavish lifestyles or fund Vivian's failures. They had no financial safety net left, no Phoenix, to rise from the ashes of their mismanagement. Charlotte's husband, seeing the sudden, legitimate $1 billion fortune I was creating, tried to sue me, claiming the trunk's contents were ambiguous assets of the estate. The lawsuit was thrown out instantly. The will was ironclad, and the codicil, explicitly leaving the contents of the trunk to me, was clear. I didn't stop there. My final, satisfying move was to buy back the family's main residence, the house where Mom died, which Charlotte and Vivian had quickly sold to fund their excessive spending, not even bothering to save the attic trunk. I purchased it through a shell corporation, renovated it, and used it as the corporate headquarters for Phoenix Materials. Now, every time my sisters drive past the sprawling, beautifully restored Sterling residence, they see the name Phoenix Materials on the sign, a daily, tangible reminder that the disappointment is now the founder and CEO of a $1 billion legacy, while they squander their lump sums. My mother's trust, once a source of shame, became the greatest gift, a gift that forced me to rise and take control of my own destiny, leaving my entitled sisters to wallow in the consequences of their own short-sighted greed. Like this video if you think mom's final, genius move was the most brilliant form of parental tough love, and I did the right thing by building the company myself. Subscribe for more stories of shocking inheritances and stunning revenge. And please share your final thoughts on which sister you think deserved their fate more in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.